Views are the windows into the soul of your application, the user interface. So it's one of the most important parts of an application. Well, along with all the rest of it. Views provide one of the biggest reasons to use MVC instead of web forms. Unlike web forms, you have complete control over the HTML that the application generates. There are no server controls spewing HTML that you have little control over, and it's hard to use with CSS and client-side JavaScript. Having complete control over HTML sounds great in theory, but it also could mean that you'd have to write a lot more HTML by hand. One of the big selling points of web forms is that you can do drag and drop development using server controls that generate massive amounts of HTML based on the properties you set and the data you bind to the controls. But MVC has a lot of features built in that make the job of writing HTML and other code simpler and more manageable, while letting you retain control over most of the generated HTML. And when you need complete control, you can bypass the MVC features and write all the beautiful HTML that you care to write. The trick to writing good views in MVC is to keep the view focused on the user interface only. This means that there should be no code that directly reads or writes to a data store, no business rule implementations, nothing that isn't directly related to interacting with the user. The ideal view should consist of a lot of HTML, maybe some client-side JavaScript, and a little code that reads data from the model for display to the user. It might be appropriate to put some logic in a view, but it should only be presentation logic needed to dynamically interact with the user. Anything else you should rip out and put in the controller or the model. Make that your solemn goal. The purest way to think about views is that the controller hands a model to the view, and the view converts it into something that is presented to the user. I found that to be a helpful context for understanding what views do and how to create them, as well as where to implement different kinds of logic. In this section, you'll learn about how views work, how you can add dynamic data to a view, a little bit about the view engine that makes it all work, and ways to adhere to MVC's DRY principle. Don't repeat yourself, by creating reusable controls that you can use in multiple views.